So we're going to be talking today about the Fifth Man. In Gears of War 4, we're going to be going into 5 versus 5 multiplayer in competitive esports for the first time. Now, this is something that we haven't talked about a lot. It's been rumored about, but it's happening. We're adding a fifth player into the game. So teams are going to be adding another dynamic into their team chemistry, and this is something that we actually have to talk about. It's never been like this. In all of the history of Gears for the past decade, it's always been 4 versus 4 versus 4 versus 4. No change in King of the Hill, in execution, straight. From Gears 1 to Gears UE, and a little bit of time that was the Redheaded Stepchild Judgment. The big thing that we need to pay attention to here is that this is a good thing for the scene development. It's a good thing for the scene to grow. It's a good thing for players to specialize in the roles that they're in, and it's also good because it's going to allow team changes and roster dynamics to make or break. I'm going to talk about the specialization here for a minute because I think this is a really important point that people aren't really going to talk about. It's going to allow players to actually have an option to go forward and specialize in a role for one time. They don't have to be a jack of all trades anymore. You can have players that are like Mental Fran, Hudson's, Excels, that are amazing with the sniper to specialize at being good at the sniper. They don't have to fight for the power weapon. They can actually place it on their side of the map and put that weapon in their hands so that they could use the sniper to break setups, to make positional changes, and to gain map control. This is going to be a good spot for them. It's also going to allow for other specialization. You're going to have your slayers, you'll have your positional anchors, you're going to have your riflemen. It's going to be people that are going to get better as the game goes on because they have more freedom, because they have another hand there that they can depend on. Now, that also leads us forward going into team dynamics and what teams are going to do with a fifth player. This is going to be an extremely critical point going forward. Having a fifth player doesn't mean that your team's going to work out. There could be bad chemistry between the players. There could be personalities that clash and don't line up. It can lead to teams breaking up and splitting apart in 3 different ways. Yes, it's going to be a little bit of a haywire mix going forward, but this is a good thing for the scene as a whole. Teams that have already picked up their fifth player from the top 3 teams is you've got Summons going to Enemy, which was announced way back when after the ESL Season Finals 2 for the Pro League. They announced Summons right after the event ended. They said, Summons is our 5th. Take it or leave it. And everyone's like, well, why are you announcing your 5th? Because they knew. They knew. This is a team that's a bunch of friends. They have good synergy. They play together all the time. If you talk to their coach, Ashes, he will tell you that these guys are just friends. They understand it. They have a heart. They have a drive for this. And they're the top team in Gears right now. They just won MLG Columbus, and they're going forward from there. And they're adding another threat on that team. You've already got Lava, Kenny, Mental, and Gilbert, which is explosives. And then you're adding Summons, who was a top 4 player at MLG Columbus. He was on top 4 team. He's still a very good player. And you're adding another dynamic into there. You have to account for that. This is going to be a very scary team and a very scary roster because now it allows Gilbert to shot call. It also allows Mental to go forward and hit and specialize in sniping if he wants to. But that's considered, of those 2 players that I just mentioned, they're considered the top 3 players in certain arguments and fighting for the top player in the scene right now. It's a very scary roster, and they've got solid players all around. Then you're going to look at teams like Dream Team, who placed 2nd at MLG Columbus, and they picked up Strangulate, who used to be the captain of Synergy, has won many events, has a lot of LAN experience, played with Red Icy and placed 2nd at Hype 4. Then you got to look at the history of just the players outside of Strangulate. You've got Demo and Kyle, who've been playing together for years, been friends, played on multiple teams together, good rosters, have always been very good together. And then you've got Icy and Dispensa, who is Tommy, and they've both been playing together. They played on NTR. They won a bunch of the tail-end events of Gears 3 on Notorious with Phobius and Toy Soldier. but they still have good chemistry together too. And they took a break at the beginning of Gears UE, but that happens. Sometimes you split apart, you come back together, it's even better. Now, adding that dynamic and the experience of Strangulate could be a good advantage for the team. He can bring some other team dynamics, a little bit more focus, a little bit more control. Could help this team move forward, also keep them from turning in on themselves because they are young and emotional and they want to be top competitors. It's understandable. The last top team who's top 3 is Envious, and Envious hasn't announced a 5th yet. They're looking over their rosters, they're looking over their options. Whoever gets picked up on this team has some big shoes to fill because they have to complete this team. There's synergy that you have to account for, their play style, what the team's looking for. They need to find someone that fits every dimension of this game because they're looking to make a return and make a comeback and be still a dominant threat in the scene. Who do you pick up? In my opinions, I've said that someone on a level of praise would probably be good. Someone from the New York God Squad teams, someone who's just a good online solid player, can play a Slayer role, can be aggressive, can make plays, just has good smarts and wits, and has a cerebral game that other players don't have. That's a good option for them. Now, who they're going to add in, I have no idea, but it's up to that. And most of those teams in the scene right now are in Envious's boat, where they have maybe 3 or 4 players, but they have to pick up 1 or 2. And you have to account for, is this person's personality going to fit within our team dynamic? Is this person going to be overpowering or take control of the team? Is this person going to add more to the team, or are they going to take away? Are we going to hate each other? Are we going to break up for the event? What is our future going to hold? There is going to be a lot of roster changes going into these first couple events while people are getting their feet wet, trying to figure out if it works. You have to get to land first and figure out what dimension of the teams are going to work. It's not going to be pretty at the first, but probably by the second or third event, we'll have a little bit more feel of where the player's strengths lie, where certain teams could use X, Y, Z of a player, and where they're going to go. This is going to change the scene up in ways that we haven't seen before because it's been 4 versus 4, so we've had like one player going to another team or a couple players going to another team. A lot of these teams of the 32 that we saw that went to MLG, a lot of those rosters are going to get pulled into other teams. It's going to happen. You've got tons of teams that have unannounced players. You've got top players all across the board. A lot of people from Exiled, and Vex is going to be looking for a player, and those guys place top 6. Then you've got TK and E6. They're all looking for another player to fit the dynamics of their team, and they're good players within the scene where they can pull from the pool. I don't see them looking internationally because the international scene has not been as developed as the North American scene has been, but that's because the North American scene has had events on and off at local events with decent prize pools, not the best, for the last couple of years. This is going to be a dynamic that is going to help grow the scene, but also change up the entire dynamic. And we have to be ready for what's coming next. These players are going to be changing teams. They're going to be transitioning. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen. I'm not so happy for the underlying changes that are going to be happening. But at the same time, the scene is going to grow and they're going to develop. And certain players are going to finally get an opportunity to prove themselves on a good team. They're going to get that shot that they've always wanted. And I think that's a good thing. That everybody is going to get, certain players are going to get the opportunities. And too much is given, much is required. These guys have to show up. They have to perform. This is for a $1 million pro circuit. The money's on the line, and people are going to have to show up and compete for it. With that being said, guys, I'm Waldo. I'm a caster and analyst for the Gears of War competitive scene. Please like and subscribe to the content below. I will be making more videos soon. I do this as a passion of mine. I do enjoy the scene, and just as it's developing in the future and going into Gears of War 4. With that being said, guys, thanks and have a great night.